Hey, everybody, welcome to the breakdown. I'm Allison Gill, and please welcome from All Rise News, probably at an airport lounge somewhere,
Mhm.
out traveling, thanks to your support for All Rise News so that he can do that. Please welcome Adam Klasfeld. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Doing well, Allison. And indeed, you got me at an airport lounge.
So I got a message that I should check out the Abrego docket late last night, because there's been some stuff going on under seal, ex parte hearings, things that have been redacted, stuff that's under seal. We've been like, ooh, this is interesting. What's going on in the Abrego case? And it seems to be pursuant to a finding by Judge Crenshaw a while back that there seems to be a likelihood of vindictive prosecution for the two crimes the Department of Justice charged Abrego with in order to effectuate his return to the United States and in order to shut down the discovery process in Judge Sinis's courtroom about why they wouldn't bring him back to the United States. Remember, the Supreme Court said you need to tell, the judge, you need to take steps to return him and let everybody know what those steps are. And a long time ago, Todd Blanch said on Fox News with Laura Ingraham, he made a statement that, yeah, well, once that Maryland judge did that thing, we started investigating Mr. Abrego. And it was pretty much on that statement that the judge was like, there seems to be a likelihood of vindictiveness here. But what they were missing was the proof, the documentary evidence that tied Todd Blanch to the decision to prosecute. For months now, you and I have been talking about how the Department of Justice has argued that the decision to prosecute Mr. Abrego had nothing to do with the White House or Todd Blanch or trying to get him back or shut down the discovery. That decision was because he was a criminal, and it was made solely by the U.S. attorney in Tennessee. No one else, Mr. McGuire alone, did this. So apparently, what these sealed proceedings have to do with is the fact that they, through discovery, finally pried loose some evidence showing Todd Blanch's involvement in charging Mr. Abrego. And I would love it if you had it in front of you. First of all, let me know if I got any of that wrong. But the opening paragraph in this motion, because, Abrego wants to call Todd Blanch in to question him for the vindictive and selective prosecution evidentiary hearing, and they're trying to squash that subpoena, saying Mr. Blanch has nothing to do with this. Why do you want to talk to such important people? He's busy, I don't know, kidnapping other brown people off the street and deporting them to Uganda. And we can't be bothered with this. So this is their opposition to that, and it's been unsealed. So, Adam, talk a little bit about what this could mean for the case, and if I got anything wrong, and if you would want to read that first paragraph, that opening salvo in this opposition, it is a banger.
It is a banger, Allison. You have that right. And here is what the opening paragraph says. I actually do have it in front of me, and I
I thought
highlighted
you might.
quite a bit because said banger. I'm going to start about midway through that paragraph because that's where it gets pretty spicy. Sean Hecker, who's the lead criminal defense attorney for Abrego Garcia, says this. Quote, the government has repeatedly claimed, sometimes under penalty of perjury, that the buck stopped with Mr. McGuire. And side note, that's the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Tennessee. That claim, it turns out, was false. It remains unknown where the buck actually stopped. The Deputy Attorney General, the Attorney General, the White House, we may never know. But what we do know, from documents the defense and the court had to pry out of the government's hands, is that the government deceived the court, the defense, and the public about Mr. McGuire's purported status as the sole decision maker. Put bluntly, numerous government lawyers chose to mislead this court in order to try and save this unjust prosecution. And that's how they start this very extensive 28-page legal brief.
Yeah, it's indicative of a lot of different cases that we've seen, that this is it seems to be the government holding on to evidence that implicates them in some bad stuff that might result in the dismissal of these charges or the dismissal of other charges. But for them to say, we don't know where the buck stops, but what we do know is Todd Blanch had a hand in it and that they lied to the court. And so they are asking, I believe, in a previous motion for sanctions. Now, some of what's in this document about the communications between Todd Blanch and the ODAG and another guy named Singh, right, and McGuire are partially redacted because they said we filed a motion for leave of court to file this unredacted, but just to be safe, we're going to keep it redacted because there's a protective order over discovery, I think. But even with the redactions, I think we can kind of get at what Todd Blanch and Mr. Singh told Mr. McGuire to do with this case. And this all boils down to, proving that he was vindictively and selectively prosecuted. So that he's asking the court, hey, can you dismiss these charges against me because they were brought vindictively and selectively? And for, because what we had imagined was that the only reason they brought charges and started investigating in the first place is because they wanted the discovery process to go away on why he was deported in the first place and that they are out to get him and all that other stuff. And so to actually now have evidence and the fact that they had to pry it out of their hands and the fact that they've been misrepresenting the truth to the court for months now, that Todd Blanch was involved in these decisions along with Mr. Singh is, I think, definitive proof that this administration is vindictively and selectively prosecuting him to punish him, to get discovery to stop. Not because because what they say, what they are trying to get us to believe, what the government would have us believe is he's a criminal and we're just punishing him purely because he committed a crime in 2022 at a traffic stop. That's it. It's got nothing to do with malfeasance or us trying to cover stuff up or anything like that, or us trying to deport him to a third country. So this is actually pretty significant discovery on behalf of Mr. Abrego.
Yes, and I can't wait for those redactions to be lifted if that comes to pass. I'm going to kind of give a little more to what you were saying, just to underline it, about the fact that this entire discovery process into vindictive and selective prosecution began because Todd Blanch went on Fox with Laura Ingraham and said that this investigation began because a Maryland judge questioned our decision to whisk Abrego from Maryland in the dead of night into a country where a court order had blocked his deportation. That the act of questioning by a judge, and by the way, 5 orders demanding his return, that was the reason. And he said that on national television. So that is why Judge Crenshaw, who's presiding over the criminal case, ordered further discovery and a vindictive prosecution hearing. And throughout that, Todd Blanch has been trying to avoid testifying, trying to quash that subpoena, saying that there is no nexus, there's no link between him and the decision maker, the true decision maker he claimed was Robert McGuire. So I highlighted a little more. I want to read that. The only thing the court found missing from the record was evidence tying Mr. Blanch's statements to the actual decision makers. Not anymore. Previously, the court was rightly wondered who placed this case on Mr. McGuire's desk and what their motivations were. Now we know it. It was Mr. Blanch and his office, the office of the Deputy Attorney General, or ODAG. So they say it flat out. And I want to give folks here's what the redactions look like. They look a little bit like the Justice Department's release of the Epstein files, because the DOJ is claiming these communications are privileged. They are talking, essentially getting a peek under the hood. Their communications of what happened before the trial, the indictment. And they are now claiming, oh, well, Blanch was just performing oversight. Apparently, the messages are so damning that that it's that one, they say that's no longer credible, and two, they're changing their story. They said there was no link. Now they're saying this was unremarkable oversight. Um, so it's an incredible 28 page. And let's remember the import of this. If he wins on vindictive prosecution, bye bye criminal case. Now he's already won on the in the civil matter. In the sense that Judge Zinis ordered his release from immigration detention. So this those proceedings are ongoing because Trump's DHS is still at it, trying to deport him again, and we will see that come to a head even this week, as holiday week. Um, but we are also trying to figure out what is coming. Will there be a trial? Will there be a criminal trial on January, or will they prevail? Kilmar Abrego Garcia's attorneys prevail on this motion, because what they're saying is there is that link that the court was looking for between the actual decision maker has been provided after they had to pry the discovery out of the government's hands. So they're saying they should win without an evidentiary hearing.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 7 of that docket entry 138 that's referenced here. To remove any doubt, Deputy Attorney Blanch said the criminal case was brought to return Abrego not because of a judge, but instead because of an arrest warrant. This could be evidence of vindictiveness. And he did say the court need not resolve Abrego's arguments on actual vindictiveness at this juncture, given that his showing of a realistic likelihood of vindictiveness entitles him to discovery. And the reason is because the judge says, well, the remarks that Todd Blanch made on Fox News may come close to establishing vindictiveness. I'm ordering discovery and I'm ordering an evidentiary hearing because it says those remarks that he made on Fox News fall short on the record before the court because they require an inference tying them to actual decision makers.
Right.
And that's
And
what the quote that is brought up in this new filing that says, oh, hey, we got that. We have that inference tying them to actual decision makers now,
right.
which you, Judge, speculated back then that we wouldn't need a vindictive and selective prosecution evidentiary hearing on this motion to dismiss, and we wouldn't need discovery if we had that. Now we have it because of the discovery and the fact that it was withheld and had to be pried out of their hands, as Sean Hecker says in this recent filing, is really astounding. I'm actually kind of surprised that stuff was handed over. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, I mean, there were all of these sealed filings in the case that were coming in rapid succession. We remember there were a couple of times there were scheduled dates for vindictive prosecution hearings. I was planning to go down to Nashville twice,
and it
and I
was
had to
canceled. Yeah.
and it was canceled. I had to change my flight. As a matter of fact, one of those hearing dates was supposed to take place shortly before Judge Dugan's trial, so I just transferred my flight to Milwaukee. Now, the reason why those hearings were canceled was that the government wasn't providing the goods. So there were sealed filings. One can only assume that the judge read the government the Riot Act in the sealed filings, and they ultimately provided the goods. And those goods are under those black marks on that page. They are redacted goods that, according to Abrego's team, establish firmly that Todd Blanch was the person behind this prosecution, that he directed it, and that the communications between him and the U.S. Attorney in the Middle District of Tennessee are the communications that are protected in this filing.
Yeah, and it was around that same time when that hearing was canceled. Shortly before that, Sean Hecker, Mr. Abrego's lawyer, had filed a motion to dismiss, saying we don't need an evidentiary hearing anymore, but not because of what was happening under seal, but in a separate issue that Costa Rica came out and said, we've always been willing to accept Mr. Abrego. We never stopped. The declaration that you filed in court that partly State Department lawyer partly wrote that guy didn't even know, the guy who wrote it didn't even know what some of the words meant. Now that Costa Rica has dropped the bombshell and said, he's always been welcome here, we don't need a vindictive and selective prosecution evidentiary hearing. We don't need that. You can go ahead and resolve it now. And so I thought I remember I messaged the legal team. I was like, did it get canceled because you're going to win your motion to dismiss because of what Costa Rica said? And they were like, no comment. Everything's under seal. And I was like, what is it? What is it? What's under seal? Turns out it's evidence that specifically was referenced by this judge, Judge Crenshaw, saying this is what's missing in order for me to rule on this right now. And they have it and they got it. And that was it. Like you said, that was canceled because they weren't handing over the goods, which is what you and I had suspected, because a lot of evidentiary hearings have been canceled because this Department of Justice refuses to hand over discovery.
Right. And I want to underline one of the points that you just made, Allison, about Costa Rica, because it's a point that's made. Whenever you talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case on certain corners of social media, one common response is, oh, these radical activist judges are keeping us from deporting this dangerous man. And let's just say you're from the state of mind that even though he's never been convicted of a crime and has a right to defend himself against the government's allegations. But let's say you say he's dangerous. Uh, and and even then, so why is the government not sending him to Costa Rica? The government, and I was over in the federal court in Maryland multiple times where his lawyers asked direct questions by the judge, would your client agree to self-deport to Costa Rica? And they said yes, twice. So if you're of the mind that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is dangerous and these radical judges are stopping us from deporting him, no, they're not. They are. He would gladly, per his attorneys, facilitate his own self-deportation. Probably not gladly, but he knows what he's up against. But he has agreed to self-deport to Costa Rica. The government refuses to. It wants to do it in the unlawful and more cruel way that it would prefer for reasons unstated. And that itself is evidence that his criminal defense attorneys have cited for vindictive prosecution. So let that particular fact sink in, because beyond all this, there's this games playing behind this case, because there has the only impediment to the deportation right now of Kilmar Abrego Garcia comes from the federal government, comes from Trump's DOJ and DHS.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is so important. This government is preventing him from being deported right now. That's it. So thank you so much. Thank you for being on the ground for the whole Hannah Dugan trial. We'll talk about that another time, because there's a lot of interesting legal stuff on appeal that could go on there. But your work is invaluable. Everybody, if you have a couple, it's free, but if you have a couple bucks to throw to All Rise News to support the on the ground, in the courtroom, play-by-play journalism from Adam Klasfeld, it's invaluable, especially during this administration, that we get the truth about what's happening in the courtrooms, and he does that. He brings that to us, and his reporting makes me smarter. So if you want to be smarter too, you'll do what you can to support All Rise News. We're going to keep an eye on when those redaction bars come off, because I think it was a cautionary measure. And I think that Judge Crenshaw will rule to unseal and release and take those black boxes off the redaction bars, and we can find out exactly what Todd Blanch did to direct this prosecution, to lead to vindictive and selective prosecution. And we'll also keep an eye on, if this is dismissed, what are the next steps for Mr. Abrego? He's free from ICE custody. I think the next step is a January 12th appeal to the Board of Immigration Administration. I think that's where his case is right now. The government's acknowledged that, even though they're mad about it. And we'll see what ends up coming out of that because that is actually not in the federal court system. Immigration court is under the executive branch. So we'll keep an eye on it. And I know that, Adam, you're going to have your finger on the pulse of all of these cases. So thank you for the work that you do, my friend.
And thank you for the work that you do, Allison. I look forward to catching up with you on the Dugan trial. There's a lot to talk about there, especially as it moves forward to post-trial motions and an appeal.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that appeal. I'm interested to see what the arguments are and which arguments they might leave out. So, thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody. Wow, 1.7 thousand of you on your day off coming in to talking to us. We appreciate it. Fly safe, travel safe, my friend. Everybody, we'll see you next time on the Breakdown.
Thank you. Bye bye.